Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dancing Eyes Podcast, Episode 5. I just want to take a brief moment and welcome all of our new listeners. Within the last week and a half, the podcast has gained over 60 subscribers, and I'm very appreciative of each and every single one of you. Everyone has been very supportive, and you guys encourage me to be better every day, so thank you. Just a brief warning, the language in this episode is a little more explicit, just some extra cursing than usual, so I just want to let you guys know about that. My guest today has the coolest name ever, or at least one of them. Her name is Pip, and she currently lives in the Netherlands. She was born with Nystagmus, and I'm very much looking forward to showing you guys my conversation with her. Just a brief reminder before we start, new episodes of the podcast will be posted to YouTube on the first and third Monday of every month. I know Mondays are not everyone's favorite day of the week, so hopefully these episodes can brighten your day up just a little. The show's Instagram as well as my personal Instagram will both be linked in the description of the video. Lastly, if you guys enjoy the content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the podcast with anyone who you think can gain some value from a listen. Alright, with all that being said, let's get on with the show. Boom. Okay, we're recording.
Okay.
My Dancing Eyes podcast, episode 5. I think this is episode 5. My name's Frankie Caputo. This is Pip.
Hi.
I was just telling this is, you have the coolest name, like, for sure.
Oh,
By far.
thanks.
Such a dope name. But
Yeah, I picked it myself, so it has to be dope. I mean, and it fits me perfectly fine.
So I was curious, am I the first person that you've met with Nystagmus, or have you met other people with it before?
Ooh, I've heard of other people. So I was explaining my condition to a friend, and my friend's like, "Oh yeah, I used to have an ex-colleague that had that." But I don't think I've personally met anyone with it.
It's interesting how that is, because I think the statistic is 1 in 1,000 people have it.
Mm-hmm.
And then every person that I have on the podcast, we're like, where are these people? Where are these 1 in 1,000 people? Because that's a lot of people. Like, that's not a small amount of people, but like, we never, like, nobody's really met anybody with it. So
Well, maybe it has to do with like how other people, when they look at my eyes, they're like, "Oh, your eyes move back and forth," but there's no way I'd be able to see other people's eyes moving back and forth
fair
unless I'm like
enough.
right pressed up against their face.
Fair enough. Maybe we all just met a bunch of people with nystagmus and we just didn't even see it.
Yeah, probably.
What if that's the case? There
I
we
could
go.
see that happening. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I would be so pumped though if I saw someone whose eyes were just shaking. I'd be like, "Yes, yes, you have it too." Like somebody else with
Or
nystagmus.
I'd be like, "Are you tripping on ecstasy?" Like, you know.
Ecstasy will do that. Okay, so yeah, I've had this like a similar experience. I've had a bunch of people see my eyes and tell me that they've met other people with my condition,
Mhm.
and so I've had that happen a few times as well. But
But you've also haven't met anyone aside from, I mean, you posted on Reddit that you're like, "I'm starting this thing because I haven't really met that many people with it."
yeah, I've
So no
only met
one.
people with nystagmus through the podcast. So this is the only, and through the subreddit, but the subreddit is like very associated with the podcast because that's where I found all my guests. So actually there's a Discord, and I got one person from Discord on
Oh,
on Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to
okay.
that as well. Yeah,
I think it's
okay.
really cool how you're doing this and how people are saying, "Yeah, okay, let's talk about this."
Yeah, it's exciting to me. Like, it's something that's been on my mind for years now, like wanting to do something like this, like since I was in high school.
Oh, James. There's this dude, British dude, James. I used to have him, like back when MSN Messenger was the thing. And I was like maybe 12. I found his website about nystagmus and I wrote him and we chatted for a bit. He was someone else that I sort of was acquainted with, but that's
Oh,
about it. Yeah,
James. What's his last name?
no idea.
Okay. I know one person. I know James Rath, who's like a filmmaker with Nystagmus. So
Mm,
I
no.
have him on his social media. Okay, somebody else.
Could be him. I don't know. Is he British?
No, he's American.
Oh, okay. That's not. The James I'm
Different
thinking
guy.
of is, yeah, British.
Okay. Um, okay, so how on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think nystagmus affects your day-to-day life?
Well, uh, it's a really difficult question because, like, until I was maybe 22, I kind of hid it from everyone. So I kind of faked my way through life as though I had normal vision. And
Oh,
now that
until
I'm,
22.
yeah, like
Oh,
until
wow.
I was an adult and moved away from home and like, yeah. So I kind of, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really known any different, and it hasn't really stopped me from doing anything aside from my own confidence when it comes to biking or singing karaoke or yeah, I'm not sure. At this point in time, what was the question?
Just like on a
On a
scale
scale of
of
1 to 10,
what? Yeah. Well, do you
how much
think
does it
like
affect me?
before you were 22 and after you were 22, like after you started recognizing it as like something that you have, did the
Hmm.
level of like th the amount that it affected your life, do you think that it changed like before and after 22?
Yeah, because after I was 22, I realized it was okay to ask for help. And then once I got help from people either writing bigger or reading the board for me, or I don't know, saying that it's okay that I don't want to ride a bike and that I have a completely good reason as to not to want to do that. Um, it, I don't know, I guess it became more of a thing where I was like, oh, there are differences between me and the average person.
Hmm.
Whereas before 22, I would just like make myself do stuff, and I wasn't aware how big that difference was. Um, so like for example, before 22, I used to just ride my bike everywhere. And I'd be like, okay, well, other people can do it, so God damn it, I'm gonna do it too. And now I've sort of listened into my own feelings about it, and now I don't bike anywhere because I'm like, you know what? I have a perfectly valid reason as to why I don't have to do this, or
Hmm.
as to why I shouldn't have to fit in that regard. So I guess there is sort of a difference. Yeah, I'm
So
not sure how to answer that question.
okay, that's fine. Um, so you're yeah, I mean back to the topic of you not like talking to anybody about nystagmus until you're 22. You were telling me before we recorded that your parents had you like keep it a secret for your childhood. So I
It was a
was
very vague thing because on the one hand, they would stop me from doing stuff because I was blind or not able to see shit, among other things. On the other hand, I'd be told like, "Oh, don't tell anyone you need help because then they're gonna think you're less valuable as a person, and they're not gonna want to hire you, and they're not gonna want to give you a good grade, and they're not gonna want to do all of that stuff." So I was really like scared to let anyone know that I had a problem. Um, when I was 6, I think, or 7, one of the classmates, my classmates during recess, and I remember it so distinctly because I didn't understand the word, but she's like, "Oh, do you have a disability?" And I was like genuinely curious. I'm like, "What's a disability?" And then she just got shy and stopped. Like, she's like, "Oh, never mind. You probably don't have one." And like looking back at it, maybe about 10 to 15 years later, I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute. Like, my parents should have probably explained what a disability is at that point in time." I don't know, wasn't it like that for you? Like, did you get an explanation about like uh how to navigate the world with your eyes?
um well, I think my parents, along with like most parents who have children with nystagmus, don't really they didn't like, you don't really know what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to raise your kid properly. So you're kind of like winging it. Like you can ask questions, but there's only so much. Like if you don't have nystagmus and you're raising somebody with nystagmus, like there's only so much that it's hard to distinguish like what's right and what's wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
I think my parents, my mom specifically, I think that she did a great job
Aw.
with raising me. Um, I knew that there was something wrong with my eyes. I knew that they shook around. Um, Pretty much, like for my early childhood, elementary school days, my parents would just tell me that I have like a loose eye muscle or weak eye muscles, and that I can't really control them very much. And
Mm-hmm.
so I always knew that there was an issue there, but they didn't tell they didn't tell me that it was an issue. They were never like, "Hey, this is going to stop you from doing things." Like nobody ever said this is going to stop you from doing things. I have a twin sister, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and I was treated like the same as her. Like nothing different really in terms of my eyes go.
Mm-hmm.
I always had glasses. I always had the thick glasses. I always sat in front of the class in school. So like my teachers always knew that there was something, and that if I needed help reading something, they would always help me out with it.
Could
Um,
you read the board from the front?
so I can't really read the board from the front unless it's written like really large, but my school
Mm-hmm.
had projectors. So we had projectors, and as opposed to a board, we had something that would come down from the top and
Oh, the overhead.
project on.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
are
like an
great.
overhead. Yeah. So we used those. And I actually think that I'm the reason, like I'm not even kidding. I think I'm the reason that those were implemented in my school. Cause because my I went to a private school for the first like 12 years of my life, like for the first
Mm-hmm.
like elementary school, middle school. So my mom told them that I had a condition, and then they literally like brought in these overhead projectors, and then I was able to see, I think. Like I remember being able to see. I did have to sit in front of the class though, but I think I
Mm-hmm.
saw pretty well. Um, but yeah, so back to your question. I was always raised knowing that there was something with my eyes, but not
Mm-hmm.
with the idea that it was like a disability or something that was going to hold me back.
Okay. I think for me, my mom anyway, like I would sit in the front of the car with her and she would be like, "Oh, can you read the license plate?" And I'd be like, "No, I can't," or at least I'd try. And she'd be like, "Well, if you had practiced more, you'd be able to, or you're not trying hard enough, or blah blah blah." And there was a point in time when she asked me to like read a map, and I'm like, yo, I can't read this. Like, I literally can't read it. And she's like, what is with your teenage attitude and not being able to, not wanting to help me navigate
Oh
somewhere?
my
This is back when
God.
we had like paper maps. So I had a lot of like internalized shame, I guess, but it wasn't really shame. It was more uh, a lot of what the fuckness. But I
Yeah,
was like, huh?
man. So you couldn't read a license plate, and she was saying like you should try
You're not
harder.
trying hard enough. Yeah, basically
Oh my
that.
God. What does she want you to
Um,
try doing?
uh, I don't know, something she had some theory about how if I had exercised my eye muscles more,
Hmm.
that they would stabilize and then I would be able to read better from a distance or some vague shit like that. But I think it has more to do with my parents were a little bit psychologically how do you say that in English? Um, Dysfunctional.
Okay.
And so uh they didn't mean to make it about my eyes, but it was a convenient thing to use against me. Let's put it that way.
Interesting. Okay. So up until you're 22, you never ever like brought it up to anybody. You never looked at it as um like a disability.
No, I kind of looked at it as like just do what all the other kids are doing kind of thing. So I thought it was normal.
And I
Or
know when you were younger, you had somebody bring it up and ask if you had a disability. Were there any other occasions where somebody just like saw your eyes shake and they asked you what was going on?
no, I think maybe that's a bit of a Canadian thing. Like people a little bit more reserved about pointing those things out because it could be seen as offensive.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm surprised that none of my teachers asked me what was going on. Because like if you had the assignment to copy something off the board, there's no way in hell I was copying anything off the board. Like no way. So either the teachers saw and didn't do anything about it because like I had pretty good grades throughout all of school, Or they didn't pay attention because I was quiet enough to not elicit any attention. And now that I'm a teacher myself, I'm just like, oh my God, how did no one notice this? This is insane.
So did you just not copy anything off the board? You just kind of like left your
No,
sheet
no, I mean, I
blank?
would write stuff, like I would write my own creative story, or I would write my own, whatever, fill the time with writing a thing on the paper, but I wouldn't be copying the thing on the board.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that. That sounds like that sounds like my high school days. Like if I have
Yeah,
to copy something off the board, I can't read that shit unless I go all the way to the front, but I'm not gonna like make a scene in front of the class. Yeah, I would just draw like little pictures. I would draw
yeah,
little
exactly.
pictures. Yeah, or work on homework for another class, and my teacher like it never got noticed, so it was never a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting that you say that in that maybe it's a Canadian thing that nobody has mentioned your eyes to you, that nobody saw the shaking and said anything, because
Do you get that more often? Like, do people look at you as like, what's with your eyes, bro?
yeah, well, especially in school, right? So like middle school and high school, for sure, and there was a lot of bullying with that too. That comes with that, like a
Really?
lot. Yeah, that's surprising to me that that's surprising to you. Yeah, a lot of it. Oh man, I guess Canada is a little nicer with that kind of stuff.
I
Maybe.
did not get bullied at all. If anything, I think
Holy
people were
shit.
like secretly looking out for me.
Holy shit. Yeah, I got bullied so much in high school.
Oh,
Yeah, so are like my other guests. Some of my other guests got bullied too. It's
are they all American?
um the American ones did. Yeah. Who did I
Oh,
have that was not? I might have had somebody that wasn't American. I don't remember right now. But yeah. Oh yeah, I got bullied a lot. I'd say like freshman year and sophomore year in high school. That's pretty sick though. You didn't get bullied for your eyes.
no.
That's awesome. Like I know you had to deal with the stuff with your parents and all of that uncomfort, but that's pretty sick that you didn't have to get bullied or hear about it from kids in school.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that is kind of like it never occurred to me that I would be bullied for that.
People just they always look for reasons to find something to make fun of. If you're
Hmm.
younger, if you're once you get to like a certain age, you start to mature and then get more comfortable with your own situation, and then the need to bully people kind of lessens. I feel.
I think I'd like more rather be bullied, like more likely that I'd be bullied for being Asian than for my eyes, I would say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened at 22 where you decided to start looking at it as more of a, I don't want to say disability, but more of something that like, hey, this is different than other people. Like my eyes aren't the same.
I went to Germany, and Germans are a lot more direct about these things. So I guess because I was thinking and speaking German and sort of in a different mode, I was like, oh, in this language, it's easier to just be direct about this shit. So then I'm like, yo, teacher, I can't read the board. Can you like write bigger? And then she was like, oh, why can't you read the board? And then that's like sparked a whole bunch of self-reflection about, hey, wait a minute. This is the first time ever that I'm having this conversation. This is weird. Um, and then yeah, I guess it was that thinking in different language and being in a culture where directness is more a thing.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Did, when they asked you if you like why you couldn't read the board, did you know what it was called? Did you know that it was called
Yeah,
nystagmus? Okay.
that's the weird thing. Like as I was a kid, when I was a kid, they told me, "Oh, you have nystagmus. You see with 20/80 vision." Blah 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 blah. But no one gave me any idea of what that actually, what the implications were.
Hmm.
Plus the, oh, it's not that bad. Don't tell anyone. Blah blah blah. Plus the, oh, you're not allowed to do this and that because of your eyes. So it's just like one very big mind fuck. My childhood.
I'm curious if you ever like kind of went back to your parents and if you ever had the opportunity to tell them like how they did that was like you're not happy with how they raised you in terms of that.
Um, Yeah, I wrote them both letters at some point because I've stopped talking to them basically. But a few years ago, I wrote my mom a letter being like, "Yo, this wasn't okay. Like, can you tell me what you were thinking at the time?" Blah blah blah. And she completely ignored it, mainly because I wrote her a long letter with all of the things because yeah, reasons. But she basically skipped over that part of it and didn't even answer questions about it. And I wrote my dad about it, and I'm just like, yo, you want a relationship, but this isn't gonna work out because you've done a lot of damage, among other things, because of this. And then he basically said, yeah, but how was I supposed to know? It's not like you asked for help or anything. And I was
Hmm.
just like, dude, you're the one who was like, don't tell anyone, blah blah blah, because yeah. So basically he played the ignorance card. Yeah.
Okay. So if you were a parent, how do you think you would raise a kid with nystagmus? What do you think is the best way to do it?
Probably ask them, like, oh, can you like ask them like if I'm playing with them and they're having trouble seeing something, I'd probably do like a little bit, tests with them and be like, oh, can you see it from here? Can you see it from there? What makes it easier for you? What makes it, what do you need, basically?
Okay.
Um, yeah, that sort of thing. Or it's basically just treat my child like any other child, and but also give them the room to ask for help when it's needed.
Okay. Would you tell your children that it's a disability, or would you kind of like let them make that inference for themselves? Because
Hmm.
I asked that question because I feel like it's different for a lot of people. I ask, so every podcast that I have, I always ask, do you guys consider this to be a disability? And I think the answers are very mixed up until this point.
I'm not sure if I could call it a disability for myself because it hasn't stopped me from doing anything aside from driving. So I can't
Hmm.
drive,
Okay.
and I can't independently skydive. So those are two very like things that I don't need to be doing in life, but they're two things that I can't do. Um, but in terms of like working in the field that I want to work in, or doing the research that I want to do, or making the art that I want to make, or living a life, it hasn't disabled me in the same way that other disabilities would disable other people. I don't know.
Okay.
So that's I would probably let my child decide that on their own.
Okay. So instead of so you can't drive and you can't skydive independently. So,
Yeah, basically.
so other than those two things, you're pretty much able to do anything that you think pretty much anybody else can do.
Well, I also don't ride a bike because I don't feel, I mean, I live in Rotterdam right now, and that's really, really busy. So I don't ride a bike, and I think most of it has to do more with not my personal safety, but I don't want to inconvenience other people. So like if I don't see someone coming and I make a turn or whatever, and I inconvenience them, then they could then come to me and be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And then I'd be like, "Yeah, I can't see." And then they'd be like, "Well, then you shouldn't be riding a bike." And then that entire spiral. But I talked to my eye doctor here, and she was like, it's kind of a right. Like everyone's allowed to decide for themselves if they're gonna cycle or not. So like, if you feel okay about it, do your thing, man.
Yeah. So how do you take a cab like or do you take a bus? Like how do you get around mainly?
Public transportation in the Netherlands is great. Like there's a bus stop. I don't take the bus. I take the metro quite a lot, so the subway. And I walk a lot, and I never really take a cab.
Okay.
Or I ride on the back of someone else's bike.
That must be nice having a good public transportation system.
Yeah, it's one of the main push reasons that I left Canada because it's basically impossible to live in Canada without being able to drive.
Is Germany good with the public transportation as well?
Yeah, it's pretty good actually. There's always a tram or a bus, and back in Germany I was riding a bike, and that went pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Netherlands public transportation, it's good. Okay,
It's
I want to go
excellent.
back there. So I went there when I was maybe 10 or 11, so it's been a really long time, but I'd like to go back there. Check out
Oh,
the
if you
public
ever come,
transfer.
let me know. I'll come and meet up with you and just be like, yo, let's do this Dutch thing.
Let's do it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm about it. I'm gonna try to. I'm about it. Um, all right, what else do I got here? Um, okay, so for me and for a lot of my other guests, when we get tired or when we don't have enough sleep, the shaking gets pretty bad. The nystagmus gets worse. I was curious if that's the same for you, and like like tired, like being tired makes it worse for me. But is there anything else that will make the shaking worse for you as well?
Hmm. I'm not sure if it makes the shaking worse, but OLED screens, like on the new iPhone 12, it makes me so super nauseous that I can't deal with it. Like I bought one and then I returned it because it was that bad.
Oh, what if you put the
Um,
blue light filter on there though?
yeah, also doesn't work. None of
No?
the solutions work. So that
Okay.
was pretty disappointing. There are some times when I'll look at a computer screen and maybe it has to do with tiredness or maybe it has to do with like other things, but I'll look at it and I'll get immediately dizzy and I'll be like, no, no, not today. I'm gonna not do that today. Um, what makes the shaking worse?
Maybe if
Could
you're
imagine
nervous
too
or if
much
you're
coffee.
anxious. Oh, caffeine. That's a good one.
Yeah, I could imagine that makes it worse, except that I kind of need my coffee to get booted up in the morning. So,
Yeah.
eh. Um, yeah, maybe if I'm frustrated or angry about something, I could imagine like if I'm emotional about something, I could imagine not wanting to that my processing is busy with other things, that there's not so much regulation for compensating for the eyes. So I'm not sure actually if it's that the shaking gets worse or if it's that the compensation gets worse.
That your brain's like focused on other things and forgets
Yeah.
about the eyes.
Yeah, and my brain's like, you know what, we're busy,
Hmm.
doing other shit. We don't have time to compensate for this crazy wiggle that never stops. So
I've never even considered that before. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
yeah. And I've
Okay.
tried like comparing like on weed and off weed because I've like smoked my fair share of weed, let's put it that way.
Hmm. Same.
And I can't really tell a difference.
I think
Can you?
I don't think it makes like an automatic difference, but for me
Mm,
personally, whenever I smoked weed, I would get anxious or I'd get like pretty paranoid. And when I'm
mm.
anxious, my eyes will just kind of start going. So it has more to do with the anxiety that weed gives me than weed itself, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, so that those would make my eyes go kind of crazy. But
Hmm.
if I'm calm and I smoke some weed, yeah, my eyes are gonna be pretty calm too. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't think weed's played a huge factor in the movement of my eyes.
Hmm. Yeah, and then like how do you tell if the shaking gets worse? Because is it just that you stop being able to read stuff? Because then it could also have to do with how much prior exposure have you had to the thing that you're trying to see. Because I explained it like my head works a little bit like auto predict no, how do you say that? Autocorrect or predictive text. So even if I'm like reading a screen, like I'm not reading all the buttons on the Zoom thing, for example, but because
Right.
I've seen Zoom a bunch of times, I know where to click if I want to leave the meeting or whatever.
Hmm. That's like my whole existence. I don't actually read anything. I just know where things are. Like pretty much
Basically.
everything on the computer, like you said with the Zoom. Like I don't re like I see the end call button. I don't actually see that it says end, but I see a small red button. I know what that
Yeah.
means. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Like I stopped if I don't have to read it, I'm not gonna read it. Like you said, it's like autofill or
Predictive text or whatever.
predictive text. Yeah, that's pretty much what it
Yeah.
is with me. Um,
Yeah, and that's why living in the Netherlands is great because everything across all cities is a little bit standardized. So the signs are all in the same font, or the boards at the train stations, they're all the same in literally every train station you go to. So it's a lot less work to like help your algorithm do the predictive texting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a good way of looking at it.
yeah.
Do you think that you having nystagmus influenced your decision to look into psychology, or was that not? Does that have nothing to do with the nystagmus?
No, but having dysfunctional parents absolutely did.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, so we discussed what makes the eyes worse. Do you know what makes it like? Do you have anything that will make it any better?
Mm, Non-fluorescent light, maybe. I read somewhere when I was young that things on a yellow background are better than things on a white background. Though for me, it seems to be more like a contrast thing. So if the contrast is higher, then it's easier to read. But if it's like a low contrast thing, but like white text on black doesn't really work so well for me.
No, yeah, me
Um,
neither.
yeah, so that's really
It
difficult.
looks like it's shaking around for me.
Yeah,
The one that's white
yeah,
on black. Yeah.
exactly. So I think anything that's like, for example, if you turn off all of the lights and you have your alarm clock that's glowing, the alarm clock numbers are going to move because it's bright on a dark surface. But if it's like just normal daylight, they don't seem to move so much, I guess.
I'm happy that you brought up the alarm clock.
Yeah.
That's a reoccurring thing on every single episode we talk about alarm clocks. I swear. This is like the fifth time now. Every single time I've had a guest bring up an alarm clock every single time. And I think on my last episode my guest didn't bring up an alarm clock and then I brought it
Mhm.
up. I brought it up and she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, like the if you turn the lights off and the alarm clock goes on and it just looks like it's shaking." Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I literally have in my notes here. I have alarm clock question mark.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand the alarm clock thing also. Ooh, is that bad for lighting?
Let me see.
So that's not ideal. Oh, okay, if I sit like this, all right.
You're good there.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? So you're not wearing glasses right now. Are you wearing contacts?
No, I used to have glasses. Eventually I realized the glasses weren't doing anything for me. Also, like when you sit in the eye doctor's office and they're moving the lenses and they're like, okay, is it clear through this one or that one? Is it clear through this one or that one? I don't agree with the way that they measure like from a distance because nothing is clear from a distance. But if you have the thing like closer to my face, like then the movement of the eyes would stop and then you could measure the myopia if the thing were close to my
That's
face.
so annoying, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
so annoying when like for if I'm looking through the lens and then I could see that if my eyes weren't shaking, I would be able to see it. But because my eyes are shaking so much, I literally can't read it. But
Yeah.
it's clear enough for me to see it. Like if they would just calm down for like a second, I'd be able to read it,
Yeah.
but I can't. Yeah.
Basically. So I tried to explain this to the eye doctor. I'm like, I think you're using the wrong test to determine whether or not you need glasses because of a bunch of logical reasons. And she was like, that's really great that you think that, but this is the procedure that we have to use, and blah blah blah. And then I'm like, is there a journal I could write blah blah about this because I'm also a scientist? And she's like, well, if you want to get into ophthalmology, I'm sure you could design a study about this and blah blah blah. But like, yeah, that was a bit of a dead end because designing a study and getting the money for that and doing
It's a
it
whole
would
thing.
take a long time.
Super long time.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not even sure if I need glasses, because I don't think the test that they use is correct, and glasses have in the past given me headaches, and so I decided to do away with them because also I look better without glasses,
Same.
and I can't see anyway. So
Have you ever tried contacts before?
I think once when they were doing some tests to look at the shape of my eye or something like that, but I haven't tried actual contacts. Also, I heard from like one of my eye doctors that there's quite a difference in my eyes, apparently. So contacts would mean that one would be a lot thicker than the other one, and it's probably not a good idea.
Which eye is stronger?
Hmm. I think my right eye is stronger
Okay, so you can see better out of the right eye.
in theory. Uh, yeah, I think so.
My right eye is a lot stronger. Like
A
that's
lot
my
stronger.
good eye. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
for sure so much stronger. I think it might. I don't really know like what it has to do with the null point, but like when I use my null point, like I move my head to the left and I look more with my right eye. So I
Me
think
too. I was gonna
yeah,
ask you about the head tilt thing. And then do
yeah,
you also get muscle pain in your neck after
yeah,
like doing
yeah.
it? Yeah.
I went to a show a couple weeks ago, and like I was sitting over here, and like the stage was like all the way down over there, so I had to like move
Mm.
my whole head the whole time. I had to move my head, and I had neck pain for like the next day. So yeah,
Oh,
I get neck pain, but that's just because I'm moving my whole ass head. Like if I wasn't moving my
yeah.
whole head, then I wouldn't have it. But yeah, it's hard to see without moving your whole head.
And sometimes it's like subconscious because I don't even realize I'm doing it unless I've been like drawing something for a long time, and then I'm like, oh, that's stiff. Like, why is that so stiff? And it's like, oh, that's why that's so stiff. Um,
I didn't even notice the
yeah.
tilt until other people brought it up. Like they
Mm.
would start, people would imitate like what I like the movements that I make, and then I would see them. I would see them and I would say, "What are you doing? Like, what is that? What's going on there?" And they're like, "That's
That's
you.
what you look like.
That's what you look like." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" And then after like five people did it, I was like, "Okay, I guess that's what I look like." I mean, like I don't know what I look like. I don't like see myself walking around in my day to day life. So yeah, it's interesting seeing like how other people perceive you look versus like how you think you look. Because it's like for me, it's not the same.
Do you feel self-conscious about it now that you know?
I used to. So like early years in high school, I'd get bullied for it a lot, and
Mm.
I like I said before that, I didn't even know about it. Like I didn't know that my head moved. I didn't know that I had to move my head to see things until other people brought it up. So when they did bring it up, yes, I did get self-conscious about it.
Oh.
And I was so self-conscious about my eyes and like my head movement that for literally a year it consumed me. Like it was my whole existence was my
Oh,
nystagmus.
wow.
Yeah, like for a whole year, like I would think nonstop about it. And then I wouldn't look people in the eyes. I would talk to very little people. Like I wouldn't talk to anybody. Um, and then I slowly became more comfortable with myself and like who I am as a person.
Hmm.
And once you start to become more comfortable with yourself, you get over the things like the eyes, or you become more comfortable with it. And for
Yeah.
me, I think like around this time is when starting the podcast was in my head, because I
Oh.
thought maybe if there was a podcast, it would be like helpful to somebody such as myself who's dealing with this.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, so the idea of the podcast was in my head for years before I ever actually did anything with it. But
Well, I'm glad you actually did it. I mean, like, one of my, yeah, I guess one of my, call him a boss colleague. My colleague told me once that the difference between an idea and art is just doing it. So you've
yeah,
basically just like gotten over the hump and just done it.
yeah, I'm so happy
Yeah.
that I did too. It's yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I like meeting everybody with the nystagmus too. Like seeing all the new faces. It's nice, and
Have
and I could
you thought
actually.
about, oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Have you thought about like ever carrying a cane for the purpose of letting people know that you're like a little bit blind, but not really?
No,
No.
no. What about you?
I thought it'd be handy if I if I were to ride a bike, it would have been handy to paint my bike kind of white and red to sort of like stick out a little bit and be like, oh, this is the thing. But then I realized that it would make more sense in my head than for the people who would have to figure out what that means.
Yeah,
Um, so no.
yeah. I don't think I would do the cane because I don't really want people to know that I'm visually impaired. Like unless I need it, Like for me, I operate just fine in my day-to-day life. I don't drive, but I do have a driver's license. So if I need
You
to drive,
do?
yeah, I
So
do.
cool.
Yeah. Um, I got my license just recently. I got it a few months ago. So I guess January of this year I got my license. And I've actually
Hmm.
spoken to a couple people on the podcast who drive. Like they drive all the time, just not at night.
I've never
Nobody likes to
tried.
drive at night.
I think it's more of a confidence thing. Like I don't want to be the cause of an accident
Hmm.
on the road and have it be due to my vision.
That's my thing. That's my
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. If it was just me on the road, I would drive. And
Yeah,
if there
exactly.
was no way that I could harm anybody, then I would be totally cool with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, if I like hit somebody or if I hit a family and and I knew it was because I didn't see them, I would feel so shitty about it.
Yeah,
That feels
basically
so
that.
shitty. Yeah. Do you have issues with like seeing people's faces or recognizing people?
I realized that I recognize people based on like how they walk and their posture quite a bit. Uh, yeah, because if I used to live in a city where a lot of it was walking, and you'd just come across people. I mean, it had 250,000 people, but you'd eventually come across someone that you knew on the street. And I realized that like it's either voices or people's posture or the way they dress that are my cues instead of someone's facial features or something like that.
Okay.
I also can't tell if someone's shaking their head or nodding their head. So if I ask a yes or no question and someone does that, I'm just like, huh? Help.
Huh? Yeah. So I'm so bad with facial cues just in
Yeah,
general. Like if you are signifying anything with your face to me, I don't know what you're saying. Like you have to
basically that.
speak to me. I don't know what your face is doing.
Yeah, but because I function so well, people forget that I have a thing, or I forget to tell them that I have a thing. So, yeah, sometimes I've known someone for years before I'm like, oh, and by the way, I have this eye thing. They're like, oh, never occurred to me.
Really?
Yeah,
I, yeah, like I can know somebody for a few weeks or for like a month maybe, but just after a certain point, they're gonna see the shaking, and then eventually it's
mm,
just easier for me to bring it up and be because you mentioned earlier, how do I know if it's shaking, if my eyes are
mm.
shaking? Well, I could feel them shaking. Like,
You can feel them shaking.
yeah, if they get really bad and they start going crazy, like like everything just starts shaking. Like I see, like my whole world just starts shaking. So I could
Mm,
experience that. So if I'm ever talking to somebody and then shit just starts shaking, then I'll try to bring it up just because then I feel like it's the elephant in the room. If
mm.
my eyes are going crazy, some people will think I'm on ecstasy, or if I'm, they'll think that I'm like wasted, and I have to be like, no, I'm actually sober right now. My eyes just do this sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I can actually like see my eyes shaking. Sometimes I can if I like focus on it.
So okay, go do like the opposite of your null point, and move your eyes in a place that they're not comfortable looking.
Yeah, I can see the objects kind of moving at a constant amplitude, but I have to focus and like pay attention to that in order to see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, if I move my head to the left and I look over here, my eyes are gonna start going crazy. Like I see everything shaking right now. Everything's just going crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So that's how I tell. Um, what other questions do I have here? I don't think I have very many other questions. I have like have you ever had any surgeries or any procedures?
Mm-mm.
Would you
Nope.
ever consider
I
any?
read about Botox at some point in time, and decided against it for can't remember the reasons anymore. I also read about some surgery, can't remember what it's called, watched a video about it, but this is when I was like under 18. Watched basically the entire surgical procedure, and then like because I was a nerd, I looked up like what is the evidence that this actually works? And basically, when you what was it called? basically you snip the ocular muscles and then reconnect them, and in some cases it's like a reset has happened for no apparent reason.
Huh.
Um, and I brought it up with my doctor at the time, like my family doctor at the time. And she was like, "Well, it's not approved in Canada, and if you go to the States, it's gonna cost something like $100,000."
Jesus.
So I was just like, "Yeah, forget it. That's not. We're not gonna do that."
Yeah, fuck that.
Um, yeah. So no, other than that, I haven't really thought about it. I've looked at drug trials at some point in time when I was younger and desperate to not have this be a thing that would ruin my life until I realized that it's not ruining my life. Um, and there are some drug trials, but also not enough convincing evidence to explain to me why a drug would work and what the mechanism is.
Hmm.
So yeah,
It is interesting how much of it is in your head, though, and how much of it isn't in your head. Like you
yeah,
said something about it ruining your life, and then you said that you realized that it wasn't ruining your life. That's just like I can relate to that a lot because, like,
yeah,
at one point I felt like it was ruining my life, and then you can kind of just get out of that, and then it becomes a minor thing that you don't even really think about.
yeah, basically. And I mean, the eye contact thing, I used to avoid making eye contact all the time. Um, Mainly because, yeah, I didn't want to be found out. I didn't want people to like look directly in my eyes and be like, ah, they're moving. Um, so maybe that's also why people haven't really noticed. Also, I have like smaller eyes. I'm Asian. That's the Asian advantage, maybe. Uh, in terms of hiding nystagmus.
You could have worn sunglasses
Um,
everywhere. Just
yeah, that's
do the
true.
Stevie Wonder.
But then the contrast between things is significantly lower, and that makes it just generally worse to read things.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. But now, like, I have no problem walking into a restaurant and be like, yo, I can't read the menu. Can you, like, either give me a paper menu or help me read so that I can order? And people are, like, really friendly. So it's really just a matter of trying and having enough examples of people being friendly for me to realize, like, oh, wait, like, it's no big deal if I ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like the barcode menus? Like the ones that you scan?
Barcode menus.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, okay. So there's menus now. So what they'll do at the restaurants over here is they'll put like little barcodes on the table instead of a menu, and you just scan it with
Mhm.
your camera, and then then the menu's on your phone, and you could like zoom in on
Oh,
it now. Yeah.
that makes
Oh,
life easier. Yeah.
yeah. You guys don't have those in the Netherlands?
I'm sure we have them somewhere. But I don't go out much because yeah, I work a lot by choice.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so no, we still use in the restaurant that I work at, we still use paper menus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. I got you. Okay. I think we've been going for like, what is it, like 45 minutes now, 50 minutes now?
I don't know, I can't read the time.
So
I have no
I know
idea how many.
I always like put it like right up to my face so I can see it. Um,
Yeah.
do you have any like any questions or anything specific that we didn't hit on yet that you want to talk about?
Mm, I don't think so, actually. I think this is a lot of fun.
I always have fun. I had a good
Yeah.
time. Okay. Hey, well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. This is a fun
Yeah.
episode.
I will definitely subscribe to your channel so that I can see all the other episodes that come on because yeah,
Thank you.